monster's chest was very, very wide. I think all the time what would have happened if I'd actually hit it.
I had the gun ready to defend myself and my son against the monster.
This half man, half goat that lived out there on the Pope Lick. He'd lure kids up on top of the track and then try and kill them.
All of a sudden, all the animals in the forest just started getting really, really, really loud. We were looking at each other like, what is going on here?
The Ozarks. They rose from the primordial oceans nearly 300 million years ago. Today, it's a region so dense and dank, it can shield a people who often choose to be left alone. In the hardscrabble life of Ozarkers, the old stories are held close. Faith in the mysterious and the unexplainable stands fast.
Arkansas as a whole, including the Ozarks, have a long history of sightings of mysterious creatures. This would all be a place where an unknown animal could hide.
The people that really have seen the monster take it seriously.
I know of several people who were skeptical before. They're no longer skeptical.
There is a lot of open space here. There is a lot of dense country that is not explored. You know, you're right at the outer edges of society. So you get a chance to see things that ordinary people don't see.
In America's heartland, there is but one mountainous region, the Ozarks. On its southern edge lies Fouke, Arkansas, a tiny town of less than 1,000 in the southwest corner of the state. Since 1908, there have been 70 sightings of something monstrous creeping in the woods. One of the latest cases is that of Heather Owens.
Growing up out here in the country in a rural setting was great. I loved it. It's just peaceful, quiet, everybody knows everybody, and I think that's what I like about it.
She was a very active kid. She wanted to be involved in everything, and she pretty much was.
Heather Owen grew up a typical Ozark country kid. Learning to hunt and fish followed soon after learning to walk. And along the way, she heard the legends of the beast that hides in Boggy Creek.
I was always a skeptic. I really didn't pay much attention to the stories about the Fouke Monster, but I never thought that I would see one.
One fall night, that would change. Rumors would turn into reality.
September of 2011, probably around 6 o'clock, got my books, my laptop, and my pencils and paper, and I went over to my friend's house to study with her because she had an English paper due at the same time.
Did you go to the review session last Thursday?
I did not. What was going on in that session?
It was terrible. You didn't miss much. I don't think it will help me at all in this test either.
I kept hearing a dog barking. And so probably after 20 minutes of this dog barking, I asked, why is it barking? And she said, oh, she just wants in. She sees the lights on.
It's so annoying.
Around midnight, I gathered up my laptop, my books, and put them in my car. Outside, I noticed that it was very strangely quiet. I didn't hear no crickets, no cows, nothing. I mean, no noise. Kind of like a real quiet, almost kind of eerie night. I pulled out of the driveway and I had my radio going because I usually put my radio as loud as I can. And I was just driving down the road like I normally would.
What was normal was about to take a radical turn.
What catches my eye is that I see this thing slouched over or squatting or something, and all of a sudden stands up. And the roll of hay goes about mid-chest to it. The monster's chest was very, very wide, about 3 feet. I'm 5 foot, so I'd say he'd be about 8 feet tall. It kind of looks at my car, goes about like that, looks at it again, and then darts off. After I got the good glimpse, he ran into a thicket across the road, and I didn't see him. He was gone. I was sitting there thinking to myself, what did I just see? What did just happen?
And it might not be over. She was there alone, and all her windows were down. Heather was no longer sure what was there or not. But she knew she had to leave and make it to the one person who would understand.
Listen, I saw this thing in the road.
She was just practically screaming out at me. Very high-pitched voice, and her words were running together. I told her to slow down and just wait, slow down. And we went through this process about 2 more times until I heard her come out plain and said that she had just seen the Fouke Monster. I was scared. I was frightened that something bad could have happened to her.
2 days later, after the incident happened, we went down there during the daytime. My mom wanted to see where I had the sighting. I didn't have any doubts. I knew what I seen. I think all the time of what would have happened if I'd actually hit it. And I'm just seeing hands coming up at me and just thinking the most horrifying thing to scare the living crap out of me. I don't know what he would have done.
Heather Owen has joined the growing legion of believers in the existence of the Fouke Monster. The sightings have been clustered in southern Arkansas, and they describe the creature as tall and ape-like.
They looked rather large, you know, and their arms was swinging, you know. Their arms was longer than past their knees, and it was looking back over his right shoulder at me.
Some with close encounters have reported a hideous stench.
It smelled like old wet dog hair, maybe something sort of dead. You know, it was awful. I mean, it was really grotesque.
Others have recounted a scream, like a panther in heat. A few have even seen glowing red eyes the size of silver dollars.
Sometimes seeing the monster for the very first time is a very frightening experience. The very first thing they always say is, don't tell anybody, or don't mention my name.
For the believers, there's a safe haven in Fouke. A diner that dishes out generous helpings of monster lore.
When a person tells me they've spotted something that's so above the ordinary, I don't know whether I'm in a position to say, you've got to be lying. You didn't see anything like that. And it's easy for me to do that, but I'm not one of those kind of persons who just dismisses what a person says.
Skeptics, say, you don't believe this, do you? Well, as someone who's interviewed countless people who believe they saw something unexplainable, at the end of the day, I come away with the belief that these people actually saw something they couldn't explain, something that frightened them.
Now, one local Ozark hunter says his belief has turned into proof.
When you see it for the first time, it changes your outlook on what you think you know, and everything that you've been told in your life.
In the Ozarks, residents of Fouke, Arkansas have long claimed that a man-like beast hides in the area's swampy forests. One of the latest is college student Heather Owen. A short trip home from studying turned into one of the most terrifying nights of her life. After that, there was no uncertainty for Heather. The Fouke Monster is real.
Right here is Boggy Creek, ground zero for the Fouke Monster. This is a very significant area because where we stand would be an area where a creature, if it was to come out of that more remote, rugged area and approach civilization, this would kind of be where it would come to the limits and possibly be seen by some of the people that live out on these county roads. In fact, a lot of the sightings took place along Boggy Creek.
My family goes back probably within a 200-mile radius of this area, probably 100 years ago. My dad started me fishing, I guess, before I could walk. When I was a little child, he would take me off in the woods and teach me how to track deer and hunt squirrels. And we filled the freezers up with squirrels, and my mom would cook them up and put meat on the table.
Doyle Holmes thought he knew every creature in the Ozark forest, except the one he came across one foggy morning in 2004.
It was, I would say, 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun was just starting to come up, and I got on the lake early that day. It was very foggy, and I heard some splashes in the water. And then as the light started to shine through the fog, I could see a silhouette of a bipedal animal standing up in the water. When you first see it, it just runs through your mind that you can't be possibly seeing what your eyes are telling you you're seeing. It looked like he was hunting for something in the water. He was kicking debris up out of the water. It looked like he was fishing.
As amazing as the sight was for Doyle Holmes that morning, he couldn't be sure what he'd seen. That would change.
It was just after Thanksgiving, and we were all full of turkey, and it was starting to get dark, and we thought, well, let's go out in the woods since we got some time with the kids out of school, and let's see if we can get a hog.
With an abundance of habitat, food, and water, the Ozark woods are alive with a nasty assortment of feral pigs.
Wild hogs are dangerous, so you gotta kind of watch your step when you're hunting wild hogs.
Near the same lake where he'd seen the hairy biped splashing along the bank,
check it out.
Doyle and his son were setting out to track hogs.
Dad, what's that? Look.
My son come across a footprint that he couldn't identify. So he called me over. At that time, I was looking at something that I couldn't identify. I was stunned at what I saw. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. The first thing you think of is the Fouke Monster.
One evening in the Ozarks, Doyle Holmes and his young son were out hog hunting.
Dad, what's that? Look.
When they came across huge tracks, they realized they had stepped into monster country.
I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Is this a human print, an animal? What would do this? If it was a human, he would be huge. The first thing you think of is the Fouke Monster.
If it was, Doyle and his son might be in trouble. They were on foot and trapped against the edge of the lake.
You could tell that what made the print had just walked through. It had come up out of the lake, and you could tell the footprints were really fresh. With it getting dark, we decided to get out of there.
Then, out of the blue, a horrific scream, unlike anything hog or human they'd heard before.
What was that? What was that? There it is!
Something impossibly large was thrashing in the bush.
I had the gun ready to defend myself and my son against the Fouke Monster in case he was to burst out of the woods on us. You have to be ready for anything at that point, and seeing those tracks go right there, I had to be ready.
Just as suddenly, the monster disappeared, allowing Doyle and his son to escape unharmed, but leaving a trail of questions.
I think it's possibly some type of undiscovered primate who's managed to remain elusive all this time. I know it's highly improbable, but it's not impossible. You know, an area like Arkansas, from the Ozarks to the southwest tip, to all sides, it is the kind of place that could hide some type of creature that is an expert in remaining elusive.
He's very controversial. There have been rewards put out for his capture. He's extremely agile, quick, fast for his size. Taking, for example, in one step, the distance that a human would take in a couple or three.
Talking to these people, there's no way I could dispel what they're saying. When they have credible evidence and sightings, they've seen something out there. So I believe there's something out there, I really do.
No one needed to convince Doyle Holmes the monster is real. Substantiating that belief was something else.
When I got home that night, I actually pondered what had just happened, what we had just found. And you start to think, okay, how are we going to prove this? You can tell people what you've seen, and they're not necessarily going to believe it unless you have proof.
The proof was the muddy footprints on the banks of the lake. When the weather turned bad 2 nights later, Doyle had to move fast. Armed with a bag of plaster and a revolver on his hip, he went back into the woods, this time alone.
It was starting to get dark, it was starting to rain, and it was cold. I was kind of nervous going back when I did, but I had to get the track. I needed to get the track and preserve it. When I got down there, I found that the hogs had been back through there, and I was only able to find one good track left that I could preserve. I brought it home and let it dry, and a few hours later, I took the cast out, and I couldn't believe what I had. I couldn't believe it had turned out as good as it did. It's proof that is more difficult to explain away. It is something that is tangible, that you can touch. This is what's down there. Something is making these tracks.
And this track maker might not be alone.
Since we found that one track, I've noticed other tracks. I believe there are family groups down there in the woods.
Doyle Holmes managed to find a key piece of evidence. Yet for those on the hunt, it only whets the appetite, on the way to proving the Fouke Monster lives.
I would definitely like to, have a sighting myself to find the Fouke Monster. That would be sort of the holy grail of all this. If you could somehow prove to the world that what you've been spending your time doing, that would be something that would be just absolutely amazing.
The Fouke Monster remains elusive, but at least it doesn't appear to have homicidal tendencies. Quite a different story is the case of a frightening goatman monster. One that's plagued parts of Kentucky some 300 miles to the east. Long ago, the railroads cut through forests and bridged across valleys to reach coal country in western Kentucky. In Jefferson County, where the PopeLick Creek runs through a narrow gorge, the railroads built a massive span. Trains still cross the trestle, and over the years, dark rumors have gathered here. Rumors of something evil and bloodthirsty.
The legends go back to the 1940s and 1950s, several generations of it.
When I first heard about it, it was like a creature called the goatman. He kills people, drags them back into the woods, and people are never heard from again.
I can remember going to slumber parties with my girlfriends when I was a teenager and talking about the story of the PopeLickMonster, and it was terrifying.
The story lured more people out here, and the more teenagers and young adults that ventured out, the longer the story got.
This rumor just persisted, and kids had to go out and see it for themselves.
As you drive down the road, there's this sort of one-point perspective. You have trees on either side of the road. The closer you get, the more scared you are. And then all of a sudden, it's there in front of you, this towering and terrifying trestle above you. And then you have to decide whether or not you're going to climb it and be brave.
The PopeLick trestle is scary, but for generations, hundreds of people have claimed to see something even scarier.
This half man, half goat that lived out there on a PopeLick had a rusty axe with him all the time. He had hypnotic eyes. He'd lure kids up on top of the track and then try and kill them.
When it comes to the idea of these legends or monsters in the woods, it just wasn't real enough to me to be able to pass those kinds of legends on to my children as realities.
Monsters that creep in the night were the last things on the mind of Sue LaRue. She had 4 children to raise. By 1988, 17-year-old JC and his 15-year-old sister Lee were still at home.
JC was a great big brother. He defended me.
Hey, Lee.
We played together. I was 2 years younger than he was, so, you know, I didn't like him. He smelled, he was a boy, and, you know, he didn't like to wear dresses or play with dolls. Okay. So I learned how to play a lot in the yard, and JC and I had quite a lot of fun.
JC was a great guy. He would do anything for anybody. We spent a lot of time together, especially the first couple of years of high school.
On a chilly evening in February 1988, JC and Chris were heading out for a night with friends.
The last thing I remember, JC and Chris were headed out the door, and I asked JC for the $20 I had loaned him a couple of weeks earlier, and he kind of shrugged me off and said, "I'll send it to you when I get to Pensacola." So I, you know, kind of growled at him as they went out the door.
The last thing I remember saying to JC was, "Bye, honey.
You kids have a good time.
But be careful."
In recent weeks, Sue had grown worried for her son.
I did have a premonition. I haven't shared it with a lot of people. I think because it seemed so eerie. Where I worked, there was a chapel on the second floor. And I got on my knees and I prayed, God, please keep JC safe.
For JC, his prospects look bright. He had no idea the future would include an encounter with a monster.
I think we were just driving around town looking for something to do.
And they were going out to PopeLick Park. I've learned that that's kind of a party place for teenagers. And on the other side of the road was PopeLick, where the trestle was.
The PopeLick trestle was built in the 1880s. It's 90 feet tall, 772 feet long. It's just track and trestle, and that's it. There's nowhere to go.
The perfect trap to terrorize those with the misfortune of entering the domain of the goatman.
As the kids go out there, maybe they did see something. What would get them up there? What was the reason?
In western Kentucky, there's an old train trestle over the PopeLick Creek that many believe is guarded by a monster. A goatman that lures teenagers to try crossing the span. The giant horned goat, half man, half beast, is an ancient image of the devil itself. The origins of the PopeLickMonster are more murky.
One story is that it was a circus train going through and lightning hit it, and the goatman emerged out of that. Another was that there was a farmer way too familiar with his goats, and they bred a goat together. Another one more interesting actually is the farmer was mistreating his goats, and they came back as a man to revenge on the people that came out there.
There's little doubt, however, about the legend's hold on teenagers. On a February night in 1988, 17-year-old J.C. Baum and two friends were on the PopeLick Road near the railroad trestle.
JC, knowing more about the goatman than Chris and their friend, really wanted to come out here and investigate.
As we were sitting in the car, you could see out the windshield these trestles.
They were now in earshot of the monster's call. A creature rumored to imitate voices, hypnotize the unsuspecting, and entice them to climb the tracks.
Hey, there's some tree tracks over there. Ready to go? Come on, let's go.
And he got out of the car and he started saying, "Let's go," and
let's go.
They were drawn out here to find it and to know the goatman, to be the first one in town to have seen the goatman.
By risking a climb to the trestle, many believe they must have been possessed, in a trance by the monster, unable to notice the oncoming train, charging their way.
JC wanted to walk across them, climb up on one side and walk to the other side. As we walked out, the ties got further and further apart the further out you got. As we got further, the distance between the ties, was instead of 6 inches, it was a foot, and then it was 2 foot, and you had to step pretty far.
It's terrifying to go up there. You're halfway into the clouds, and all just ahead of you is this narrow track and nothing else.
There's a large bend that comes around the corner up there. You could all of a sudden see the trees light up. As the headlight of the train started to come and you could see the light. And at that point, it's probably 3/4 of a mile away. And somebody said, "Oh, there's a train."
Train!
Once we saw the train, it happened so quickly. It was there so fast. You didn't really have time to think about anything other than getting out of the way. You didn't make it very far before you decided to go over the edge.
Miraculously, Chris and the other teenagers survived. As for JC, he lost out to the monster and the train. His broken body was found further up the tracks.
JC walked out looking for the goatman himself, and the train came around the corner. It was a farce, it was a trick, and the spirit of the goatman got him.
The doorbell rang, and I jumped up out of bed, and the first thing that went through my mind was, darn it, JC's forgotten his key again. I got up and went out to open the door for him. The police chaplain was standing there. He said, I'm sorry. You can't, you only imagine that moment. There's just nothing worse.
There's been at least 3 deaths on the PopeLick trestle. 2 of them in the 1980s, another one in more modern times in 2000.
For generations, the monster's legend has worked like bait. And tragically, young people respond.
I made it my calling to find out what the goatman was and where he was and what it was that JC saw. I wanted to put the puzzle pieces together.
Without telling her mom, Lee climbed the hill at PopeLick, gambling that she could take on the monster that killed her brother.
As I walked out on the trestle, I felt fear, yet that my curiosity continued to push me. I wanted to see what JC saw. I wanted to find the goatman for him.
In western Kentucky, the train trestle over PopeLick Creek is said to be the lair of a goatman monster. Friends and family can't explain why 17-year-old JC Baum was so determined to cross the span. In the wake of his death, his sister Lee decided to see if she could find the monster.
I wanted to understand the goatman, and I wanted to understand what JC was looking for. I did climb the hill. I climbed about a quarter way out on the tracks. I was frozen. I felt fear, but my curiosity continued to lead me out.
Lee survived the ordeal, and it brought her closer to the truth about the monster. Yet even today, she relives the fear anytime she's close.
Oh, wow. Excuse me a minute. Oh, God, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's a train. You feel it. I've been out here numerous times. I've yet to see the goatman, but I don't give up hope that maybe somewhere, somehow, he lives under the bridge out here.
I think it's certainly a possibility that something lives up there that lures the teenagers, that encourages them. Is it a goat man? I don't know. But something attracts the teenagers, and I didn't see that back then.
The forests of the Ozarks hold many secrets, but not all of them are lurking in darkness. In one place, the darkness is overcome by an unexplainable light, an incandescence that seems born of magic. Near Missouri's border with Oklahoma, there's a lonely country road that's been the scene of an Ozark mystery going back to the 1860s. A place where a glowing orb, called the Spook Light, suddenly appears from nowhere.
People have seen it in hot summer nights. People have seen it in, in the middle of a, tornado. But on a good night, you may see it 2 or 3 times in a 4 or 5 hour period.
It has a tendency to disappear. One minute you're driving down the road and it's in front of you and you peak this one small hill and you turn around and it's behind you now.
We were actually looking towards the west, and all of a sudden somebody says, hey, it's right behind us. So it kind of snuck around and came up behind us, and hence the spook light.
How can a ball of light be at one place and then within a fraction of 2 seconds be behind you?
And we watched it turn colors and move. And the whole time you're thinking, how does this possible?
There's no doubt witnesses are seeing something. Explaining it is harder. Through the years, theories about the spook light have come and gone.
In the 60s, Popular Mechanics did an investigation around the lights from Route 66 bouncing off the clouds basically and back down onto this road that kind of sits parallel with it.
Researchers have tried tracking car headlights from various roadways without much luck. And as residents point out, the spook light was seen hundreds of years ago, before there were cars. Speculation has run the gamut, from the devil to UFOs.
One of the legends was that it had to do with 2 Native Americans that were from different tribes that weren't allowed to get married.
And the chief kills the other one, and the light is basically his soul that's going around looking for, his family.
The legends get passed on. It's just what families do. You tell your children, and your children tell their children, and it just keeps it alive. The Ozarks are rich with this history because the families have been there for a long time.
Julie Crockett Carver knows more than a few things about legend and lore.
I am a descendant of Davy Crockett. I believe that the Davy Crockett strength and spirit is very strong in our family.
Julie found an unusual way to tap into that strength and spirit. Teaming up with an old friend unexpectedly put them both on a path to encountering the magic of the spook light.
But that one on the edge right here, I really wanted to see it because everybody's talking about this phenomenon, this light, that ball of light that dances across, and I really wanted to see that so bad.
For hundreds of years in the Ozarks, people have reported a mysterious but unexplainable ball of light in the sky. In May of 2009, Debbie Miller persuaded her friend Julie Carver to search for the spook light. The adventure was just what Julie needed.
I was bedridden for a long time and didn't get out. Debbie was always calling, and she was a big part of, let's go do this. Hey. You've got to make up some time here.
On a warm spring day, Debbie, Julie, and Julie's daughter set out into the Ozark countryside.
It was kind of confusing how to get there because it's a lot of back roads and winding roads, and we had gotten lost. And we were on one of the back roads.
And as it got darker, the woods kind of took on a life of their own.
And there was a pack of dogs. There had to have been at least 6, 7, maybe more dogs. And we thought that was really weird.
Where did they come from? They're all over.
Looks like they're gone.
I am not going out there.
We were sitting on the side of the road and we were getting hot. And I was actually a little leery of rolling my window down just because I had this feeling something would creep up and get me.
I am not getting out.
At first, we were kind of apprehensive.
Come on.
3 women alone on a deserted road. It's dark, there's no street lights. And it's just, it sends the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. And all of a sudden, all the animals in the forest just started getting really, really, really loud. I mean, super loud.
Oh my God.
And it just kept getting louder and louder, and we were looking at each other like, what is going on here?
Just when the sounds that night were getting strange, what appeared before their eyes was even stranger.
There were thousands of fireflies flying all around.
It was the most unusual thing. It looked like a curtain of lightning bugs. I said, look at all these fireflies. I've never seen so many. They were lined down the road.
They'd come all this way, but would the Spook Light make an appearance?
Well, we waited for hours and hours and hours and hours. And then as we looked down the road, that was when the Spook Light appeared to us in a ball.
Oh my gosh, there's the Spook Light. Debbie's like, that's it.
Oh my gosh. To see this ball of light and watch it dance, it's exciting, it's exhilarating. Your heart is pumping really fast. And you never can get close enough to the Spook Light to really see what it really is.
Recently, Julie and Debbie came out again to try to get close to the Spook Light.
Looks like it's pulsing. Till you are standing there in the middle of that road and it gets dark and you're feeling vulnerable, and then all of a sudden you see this light that you cannot explain. It makes you feel so small in the big scheme of things. It's an amazing feeling. I want the world to know that the Spook Light is not a spoof. It's real. You really have to see it to believe it.
The entire culture in the Ozarks is all about stories. Something's going on. Something's unexplained, some type of paranormal ghost, monster, whatever you want to call it.
There are things out there that exist that we haven't thought about before. Every time you have an encounter with something that you did not think was real, really makes you wonder about what you've been told about the reality of living here and on this world.